Awesome.
Now, is this Zoom or live stream?
It's a live stream.
Live stream, okay.
It's a YouTube live stream. So that's why to live stream on YouTube, you have to certain followers to do it. So that's why I have to. Okay. So that's presented a couple of issues.
Clean up, everybody.
Let's get the, hey, does that card have paint on it?
It's
A little bit,
No, you don't,
I think, I don't know.
don't let all that stuff get on the floor. Yeah. You always hold it in on. Just with any car like that, we use for a paint or something. And you can fold that one up. I know, but that's a good job.
It's decent, could be better.
That's the big problem.
All these drills have to get put away, batteries back on their pack. Can you put that away real quick?
Just
Thank you.
anybody want a computer that might. It's just an LA pickup.
I got one more drill.
And I created two each one to the.
Here's the other
You get
issue.
so many fluctuations in voice levels.
Right, here's the other issue that I don't know that we're still on. Set up the stage, we'll also need to be able to get a shot of the camera. Right,
Right.
and so,
Unless you got somebody here's
correct,
twisting it.
correct. Every time we add that, it adds a layer of protection to it. So that's where we'll have to talk about the settings, like these are the cameras that you as well. We have to back it up. Obviously, you see the lead that we have to do. Not cover itself. So we would just need to use the computer to get the line.
So this just goes to regular USB, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm sure we can get a USB extension. We pull the camera back and get a wider shot.
Sure.
But even still, looking at this, you got that whole table. And you would probably, you got room, you could put another table beside it, especially if you pull the camera
Well,
back.
how he's had it in the past, and this is what we're talking about, you got two tables and a podium, so that's what, we just managed to change this.
Either that or have it podium down here and the tables up there.
That might make it look a little bit less better, David.
So I'll tell you what, could you tell me, I'll move this table.
Okay.
Just, we'll go. Like if we go behind you.
Backstage, yeah.
Right. And then just right.
All right.
Oh, no, you're good.
Here, I can grab this one by myself.
I got it.
Is it juniors or seniors in here today?
Freshmen and seniors.
Freshmen and seniors.
So when you go to PowerPoint, they're doing it in the room. You can't do a share screen with the live stream.
Right, right, yeah, and we won't be using this laptop. We're just using this laptop.
If it was more of a Zoom, notice how that goes.
Yeah.
Because we got a computer up there that we could pick up the Zoom and project on the screen as we share.
Well, and to be honest, that would be the way to go. That way, it's just not even using it, right? Because if you zoom it, there's no need to use it. So we might just do it.
Well, anyway, we'll get the audio
All right, I appreciate
set
it.
for next week.
Thank you. We still have a couple coming in, but make sure there's that seat in between you as we sit. One seat in between. All right. We'll go ahead and get started today. It's good to be in here, obviously, with the seniors and the freshmen, everyone else there in advisory. Today, we have another round of senior speeches, and the one senior speech today we have is Ms. Emma Henson.
Good morning. I vividly remember staring out the window as our beautiful southern state passed me by, driving to Aunt Gwen and Uncle Bill's house in Monroeville, Alabama. I admired rolling emerald hills and valleys, massive plantation-style homes, moss dangling from oaks, painted clapboard homes with white picket fences, and neighborhood barbecues. The house sat on 5 acres with a pond. My aunt and uncle waited, swaying in their rocking chairs. I hopped out of the car, squealing with joy as Uncle Bill threw me over his shoulder. We walked to a catalpa tree where he pointed out black and yellow caterpillars, catawba worms. For hours, I gleefully plucked the slimy creatures and placed them in a bucket to be used for fishing bait. At dusk, we went inside and drank lemonade. I spent the evening on their tire swing, listening to the cicada symphony. I saw beauty in everything, and growing up in the South, there was plenty of beauty to see. Hospitality, comfort food, serenity, and family-centered culture were all I knew. I was proud of these aspects of my culture. But now that I am older, I realize that younger me overlooked significant elements of the world in which I grew up. Before I came to Randolph, I learned Alabama history from my elementary school. My classmates and I foolishly believed, as the curriculum filled our ears with whitewashed stories of Eli Whitney's accomplishments and how Indigenous people willingly gave up their land. Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson were told as the heroes of the Civil War story. We had no idea that our experience was vastly different from that of our friends of color. We were given only one perspective. 8th grade year, I read To Kill a Mockingbird. I sat in my room as page after page led to chapter after chapter. When I finished, I stared at my wall, trying to process what I had read. I had always loved to read, so it was only a matter of time before my eyes opened to a darker picture of my beloved South. I woke up determined to figure out the real history of Alabama. I learned about Alabama Governor George Wallace and the pro-segregation speech he gave on the steps of the University of Alabama in an effort to keep out the first Black student, and only yielded when the National Guard intervened. After declaring segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, he ran on a racist, segregationist platform and yet was elected 4 times and held office as late as 1987. I researched the Ku Klux Klan and the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. I studied accounts of the horrendous lynchings and discovered that over 4,000 took place in the South between 1880 and 1950, 400 of which took place in Alabama. I educated myself on African American perspectives in addition to Harper Lee's. I watched Selma, which was directed by an African American woman. I read The Hate U Give, which was written by an African American woman from Jackson, Mississippi. I visited the Civil Rights Museum in DC. I researched Emmett Till, who at 14 years old was mutilated by white men in 1955 for no reason other than being born Black. And Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old African-American boy who was killed in 2012 for looking suspicious just for wearing a black hoodie. These were not ancient occurrences. This is recent history. My grandmother was alive during the segregation era. My parents saw the Ku Klux Klan in action growing up, and now our generation is witnessing the same issues carried out in different ways. However, when I had conversations with those in positions similar to myself, they were oblivious to these atrocities. I listened as some argued that slavery was not the cause of the Civil War, and therefore there was no reason to take down the Confederate monuments. During debates surrounding current issues, some defended Derek Chauvin after he suffocated George Floyd, and even went as far as comparing the Black Lives Matter protests to the insurrection at the Capitol. I became infuriated with the South. I could not walk outside without scoffing at the place I called home. This hatred replaced the sense of pride I once felt. But a part of me still recognized the beauty it offered. This summer, I visited a Southern university with my mom. As we walked around campus, fragrant magnolia trees offered shade, and gardenias, my grandmother's favorite, lined every pathway. I stopped at a tall reddish-brown brick building with white columns and beautiful steps leading up to the door to sit down and rest for a moment. As we walked on, we came across the magnificent football stadium with enough seats to house an army. National championship banners hung proudly while workers painted the field below. As we neared the edge of campus, we stopped at a cafe to get a cup of sweet tea, iced with lemon, just the way I like it. I looked out over the campus and realized that the aspects that stood out to me were aspects of the South. The tea, the flowers, the architecture, football were all parts of my Southern culture that I had taken for granted. I was torn between the beauty that the campus offered and the historical darkness I knew loomed over it. However, I realized that there was much to be said for the camaraderie and vivacious energy around me. This experience made me realize that the anger I had was not accomplishing anything and would not help me reach my end goal. I began to reflect on the way I had handled this passion of mine and discovered that I had been going about it the wrong way. My anger prevented people from hearing my perspective and wanting to learn about these issues for themselves. We all have blind spots, myself included, and rather than get up and lecture you about my view, I want to encourage you to hear the stories of people that belong to a different race or socioeconomic group. Explore how their life has shaped their views of the world. Ask them about their struggles and the ways we can help uplift them. Randolph has given us a wonderful foundation for our education, but our education will not be complete until we develop lasting relationships with those different from us. Without them, we are stuck in a bubble of those like us. And how can we grow under those constraints? So how do we reconcile the parts of the South we love with those that trouble us? Can we love the South while still demanding it does better? While reflecting on these questions this past year, I realized that there would be darkness no matter where I lived. The world has both good and evil. These ideals can coexist together. It isn't us versus them. It's how can we bring our different perspectives together to bring about change. For those of you that only see the good the South has to offer, I challenge you to seek out those with different perspectives. Do your own research, listen to the members of the African American community, and recognize that the land of the free that you have experienced is not the experience of our African American brethren. For those of you like me that only see the darkness and cruelty that took place and is taking place in the South, I encourage you to embark on the same journey that I have begun and find the beauty our home has to offer. Just outside, there is a beautiful pasture beneath rolling hills filled with calves running and playing. Those are the images of the South that are worth fighting for. So though we cannot change the South's horrifying past, we can salvage what makes it beautiful whilst fighting for a South full of equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. That's our only senior speech today. We have a few things going on with both basketball teams in postseason play. Our indoor track team had a fantastic state meet down in Birmingham this past weekend. We'll be sharing more information about pre-registration later this week. Be sure to look in advisory at your 4-year planning sheet, and your advisor will be going over those. Begin thinking about which courses you would like to take for next year. We will send out the course catalog and all the offering sheets and documents going out Wednesday of this week, Wednesday evening. Those will go out to help you with that process. And with that, be excellent to each other. Seniors, you are dismissed.